Most people spend their lives fighting battles they were never meant to win. They argue with the past. They worry about the future. They try to control how others think, feel, and behave. And in doing so, they slowly drain their own peace. The Stoics recognized this trap over 2,000 years ago, and they offered a way out. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, gave us the foundation of Stoic wisdom. Some things are in our control, and others are not. This single realization has the power to dismantle anxiety at its root. What is within your control? Your thoughts, your judgments, your actions, your effort, your values. What is not? Other people's opinions, outcomes, luck, timing, the past. Yet most suffering comes from confusing the two. You replay conversations you can't change. You fear outcomes you cannot predict. You chase validation from people who may never give it. Every time you do this, you surrender authority over your inner world to forces outside yourself. The Stoic refuses to make that trade. Instead of asking, "Why is life doing this to me?" the Stoic asks, "What is the most honorable response I can choose right now?" That question shifts you from victimhood to command. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop demanding. You act with intention, not desperation. You respond with reason, not impulse. When setbacks arrive, and they always do, the Stoic sees them as training, not punishment. Obstacles become teachers. Discomfort becomes a forge. Loss becomes a reminder of what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." When you accept reality as it is, instead of resenting it for what it isn't, you reclaim your power. You don't need the world to cooperate with you. You need your mind to stop fighting what it cannot rule. Master this distinction, and chaos loses its grip, because no matter what happens around you, you remain in control of yourself. Most people believe happiness arrives after the result. The Stoics knew better. They understood that attaching your peace to outcomes makes you fragile. When success becomes your identity, failure becomes a threat. When approval becomes the goal, rejection becomes a wound. This is how people surrender their emotional freedom, without realizing it. Epictetus warned against this trap. He taught that you should care deeply about how you act, but remain indifferent to how things turn out. Not because outcomes don't matter, but because they are never fully yours to command. Think about how much stress comes from wanting guarantees. You work hard and demand recognition. You love and demand certainty. You try and demand success. But life makes no promises, and the Stoic does not argue with reality. Detachment is not coldness. It is strength without desperation. You still give your best effort. You still show up with discipline and integrity, but you release the illusion that the universe owes you a specific reward. When you do this, fear loosens its grip. Anxiety fades because your self-worth is no longer tied to something outside your control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." In other words, it is attachment that hurts, not events. A Stoic can lose and remain steady. A Stoic can succeed and remain humble. Why? Because their identity is built on effort, not outcomes. This mindset creates a rare kind of confidence. You are no longer performing for applause. You are no longer crushed by silence. Whether the world praises you or ignores you, your inner standard remains unchanged. And this does something powerful. It makes you fearless. When you stop needing results to validate you, you take bolder action. You speak more honestly. You pursue difficult goals without being paralyzed by the fear of failure. The paradox is simple. The less you cling to outcomes, the more effective you become. You stop forcing. You stop chasing. You start executing. The Stoics believed that true freedom begins the moment you can say, "I will do my duty well, and I will accept whatever follows." That is not resignation. That is sovereignty. When effort becomes your reward, no external force can shake you, because your power no longer lives in what happens, but in how you choose to act. The Stoics carried one thought with them every day, not to frighten themselves, but to stay awake. Memento Mori. Remember, you will die. Most people avoid this truth. They bury it under distraction, noise, and endless delay. The Stoics faced it directly, and in doing so, they learned how to live with clarity. When you remember that your time is limited, illusions fall away. Petty arguments lose importance. Ego softens. Procrastination becomes dangerous. You stop telling yourself you'll start someday, because someday is not promised. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't a threat. It was a compass. Death does not make life meaningless. It makes it precious. When you accept mortality, fear begins to dissolve. You stop clinging so tightly to approval. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop postponing courage. Why protect an image when time is already taking everything away? The Stoics believed that remembering death sharpens judgment. It asks you one silent question again and again. Is this worthy of my remaining time? Every wasted hour becomes visible. Every distraction reveals its cost. This awareness creates urgency, but not panic. It produces focus. You become selective. You invest energy where it matters. You choose character over comfort, truth over applause, purpose over pleasure. Memento Mori also dissolves resentment. When you realize that everyone you meet is moving toward the same end, compassion grows. Anger feels heavy. Forgiveness feels light. Even suffering changes shape. Pain is no longer an injustice. It becomes part of the human contract. Something endured with dignity, not resisted with bitterness. The Stoics did not fear death. They feared never truly living. When you remember death, you stop living on autopilot. You speak what matters. You act while you can. You stop waiting for permission to be who you are meant to be. Death is not your enemy. Forgetfulness is. Remember death, and life becomes sharp, honest, and awake. Stoicism is not a philosophy of comfort. It is a philosophy of strength. The Stoics did not wait to feel motivated. They trained themselves to act correctly regardless of mood, fear, or fatigue. They understood that a disciplined mind is the last true form of freedom. Most people live at the mercy of their impulses. They react instead of responding. They avoid discomfort. They chase pleasure and run from pain. The Stoic does the opposite, not because it is easy, but because it builds command over the self. Discipline begins in the smallest moments. Waking when you said you would. Doing the difficult task first. Holding your tongue when anger tempts you to speak. These are not minor acts. They are repetitions of self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not to inspire others, but to correct himself. Every page is a reminder. Govern your thoughts, or they will govern you. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort. Cold, hunger, silence, solitude, to remind themselves that they needed far less than they imagined. When comfort was removed, they did not collapse. They adapted. This made them resilient long before hardship arrived. A disciplined person is not rigid. They are stable. When chaos strikes, others panic. The disciplined remain calm. When emotions surge, others obey them. The disciplined observe and choose. This is how you become untouchable, not by avoiding hardship, but by training for it daily. Discipline also builds identity. You begin to trust yourself. Promises to yourself are kept. Self-respect grows quietly without applause. And with self-respect comes confidence that does not need validation. The world may test you. It may delay you. It may disappoint you. But it cannot break someone who governs themselves. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom is not found in external success, wealth, or status. It is found in command over your inner world. This is the final Stoic truth. When you master your habits, emotions, and reactions, nothing external can dominate you. You may lose possessions, you may lose status, you may lose comfort, but you will never lose yourself. And that is what it means to live stoically. Calm in chaos, disciplined in action, and unshaken by the world.